In this video I'll show you how to make this animation.
Why you gotta go and let me down like that, hey, down like that, oh why you go and let me down like that, hey, down like, I was nothing but loyal to you and from the start, you changed up on me as soon as things were getting hot, I've only seen it like a spiral's being in the dark, and you let me down like that, yeah, down like that.
In this video I worked in Photoshop, Animate and Premiere Pro, and I'll be leaving the timestamps here for when I worked in each program. These are the measurements, so A4 with 300 pixels per inch in RGB mode, so it's easier for using on the internet or the web version. So the reference image I used was this one, KSI, where his arms are raised and he's victorious. First thing I did was lower the opacity of the image, so it's easier for me to draw the outline, which you can see here. So I made a map for both KSI and the background and the colors that I've used. So starting off with the outline, this is the basic outline, so here you can see I had to remove some details from the ref, and in this outline as well I added some finer details, so it was easier for me to know where I should draw the shades and the lighting as well. And of course the details for the text on the shorts, so that would help me later on, as you'll see. Now starting off, I picked up some colors from the body. Here you can see all the colors, I just kept them on a separate group layer. And here I pretty much named everything. It looks kind of cheap, but it does the trick. So I know that these are for the face, this is for the body, the shorts and the gloves. Now I can pretty much get rid of this, or what you can do as well is put it to the side and kind of use it as a reference for drawing on your canvas. But for the sake of the video, I'll remove it and show you what I've done. So starting off, I started with the body, and first of all I filled everything in. How you can do this is actually pretty easy. So if you press W or quick selection, the magic wand tool, go to your layer, you select everything surrounding it, right click, inverse or inverse selection. You can see that everything is selected now. Then you go to select, edit, and for me it's in Dutch, but it's pretty much reduce the size, reduce by 2 pixels, and you can see that the layers are, or the lines, the end line is inside of the selection. So this makes it really easy to fill everything in. So moving on, first thing I did was create layer masks for everything. So it's really easy for me to edit everything out. The first thing I did was add lighting. I did this for every layer I made. As you can see, this is kind of resembling where all the lighting of the picture fell on. And then I did the shading, so where all the shadows were on the body. And I did this for every image. So next up we have the face, and as you can see I used kind of different colors. So here again is the face. What's different about the face, I used not just one base color but a couple of extra edits, as you can see, for the lips and for the mouth as well, but it's still all kind of similar. Here again is more lighting, and here's the shading. Now moving on to the gloves, as you can see I just used this color, very simple, very simple shading. I just used a little bit of a darker darker white or off-white color. Now moving on to the shorts. I hope I'm not going too fast with everything. I mean, a lot of this is just using the reference for detail, so you kind of know how much you have to color everything. And the way I colored it is actually pretty simple. If you go to a soft brush, you go to your layers. So I can just, for an example, make a new layer, pick a pretty big soft brush, lower the opacity a little bit, and if you draw, you can see that it is pretty easy to add certain shades on everything. So it's not too in-depth on how to do it, you just need to get a feel for it and practice it a lot, and eventually it will just become second nature. So moving on to the shorts, I used this dark red as a base color, and I started off with the lighting. A lot of these are referenced from the image as well. As you can see, the positioning for where all the lighting is just an easy reference. And after that I added the shading, and now it looks a lot cleaner, and from a distance it looks pretty realistic. Like if you zoom in, obviously you'll start seeing like all these weird lines, but it's not, I mean, it's the same for everything. Everything is just a line, and together it forms an image. Now lastly, I did the hair. As you can see here, I used a darker color, similar color to his beard, kind of like this, or a dark blackish color. I didn't really think too much about it from the start. I just kind of went with it. So I added some lighting from the braids, and then a bit of shading as well to give it a bit more depth. It was also important to remember that this line is where his head ends, and this is kind of like where his hair falls. So there needs to be like a simple distinction with this line here. Lastly, what I did is put a glow effect on the outline of the group. It's very subtle, but I think it kind of does its job. And how I did this by going to overflow, outside glow, and a little cover, and as you can see, kind of gives it a more reddish kind of effect, which I think worked out pretty well, even though it's pretty subtle. Now we can close this map over here, and we can move on to the background. The background is actually, again, it's all very easy to do once you understand how it works. So this is the background color I chose to use, and how I did this, again, very easy. So I just selected a couple of colors that I liked, and what I did was work with low opacity with a soft brush, and just started adding some colors in, something like this. Maybe select the blue, and suddenly you will see maybe a pink purplish color. You'll see that he is radiating light, and this is kind of the method I've used. I've used a bit higher opacity as well, just to get more definition in, to speeden up the process. But I've done something like this with colors I like, and eventually I got to this kind of color. It doesn't really look finished because I added these elements in, and these are done by using the lasso tool, or shortcut L. And what you do is, or what I did at least, is make these kind of rough shapes once you've done that, you can go to your bucket tool or G for a shortcut. Choose the color you like, fill it in, and then once you've made all these kind of shapes, like obviously this is just one, you go to filter, to blur, and to Gaussian blur. You select what's best for you, what works best for you, and then you can maybe, if you use Control or Command U, you can lower the opacity if you like, or change the color, or even the color tone to create a desired effect. But I like this because KSI is nicknamed the Nightmare, so I wanted to give like a nightly feel to the image and create a bit more, I don't know, abstract, give it a bit of an abstract feeling, and that's kind of the goal of this. Is how I created this work. Obviously it's all pretty basic, pretty simple. It didn't take me too long, about 3 hours I believe, and this is the end result. And now we can move on to the animation. So what I did was I saved the background separately in a PNG file to not lose quality, and I saved KSI without the background as a PNG file, and then we can now move on to working in Animate CC. So now we're in Animate CC, and first things first, I worked in a 24 frames per second clip with 1920 by 1080 pixels, and I worked on a white background, nothing too special. One tip I can give people who are familiar with Animate CC is when you go to your publications, obviously this again is in Dutch, so you might not understand it, but you want, when you're testing your project, you want to press this button or click it up where you record your hidden layers. And why you want to do that is when you go to your controls and you want to test your timeline, every hidden layer will not be recorded. So if you didn't know that, that's super useful. Moving on, first things first, this is KSI, of course, the PNG file. I turned everything into a symbol, and I made a classic tween. What this does is you can kind of move the image across your timeline. So for example, this is the first part and I want to move him over here, then you can easily do this by this, by having a classic tween, and it will, every frame will be made over time. Obviously I have already done that, so what I did was, I made a very long and just a simple animation of him slowly moving over the canvas. As you can see here, he's slowly moving, giving like a just a basic feel of movement with the background as well, as you'll see later. So here you can see a layer called Super Saiyan. I tried to do a couple of effects, but this didn't really work out, so I left it out. And maybe you picked it up as well, but his eyes are blinking as well, so he's a bit more alive. One thing I want to tell you, first of all, it's animating with this much detail and color is super difficult, so I wouldn't advise doing it. I'm not too advanced to work with this much detail yet, so I try to keep it simple, but give it a bit of movement. Anyway, what I did was create a symbol from this moving classic tween. You can do that by pressing F8, and then you get this screen. I can't think of the word. And you see these types. First of all, you want to center it, and then you get a film clip, a button, and an image. And what I did is an image so that everything you see here will also be moving on the canvas. So the good thing about having a symbol is you can edit inside of the symbol and create even more symbols inside of these symbols, and that's exactly what I did. So this clip is 2 seconds long. It's pretty much at the end he blinks, which is this top layer, this empty top layer. All I did was, if we zoom in a little bit, you see I just put a little color on top of him, which is pretty much this. And when you zoom out, or when we put it on a repeat, you can see that it looks like he's blinking. Of course I need to put it on again. So it looks like he's blinking over time. And this is something really easy you can do in Animate, and it will help with a lot of simple kind of designs. The next thing I did was add a cyan effect, which looks something like this. Now you might think, do I have to draw all these layers again? No, that's why we have the symbol. So again, I turned this into a symbol as well. And here you can see it's 3 frames, so 1, 2, and 3. And if you play it all after each other, you can see that when we play the clip, this is how it looks like. And every 2 seconds you can see him blink as well. And that's the gist of it. This was a former attempt of how it would look like, but again, I just didn't really work out, so I just left it with this. So we can click that off. And now you can see that he is moving, and the background is moving with him because it's in this exact same layer. And you can see him blinking as well, so there's a bit more, he is a bit more alive. I was thinking about making him breathe as well, but I was kind of short on time, so didn't really do that. Moving on to the background. As you can see, there's a lot has changed in the background. It's become a lot longer. And the reason for that is I wanted it to move from up to down. But I didn't really want to edit the background that I had, so this is kind of what I did. And as you can see, this is the size of the whole working space, and now it looks kind of weird, and again, it's not on a perfect loop, so it looks kind of clunky. It's 16 seconds long, which should be long enough for whatever you want to do, and I'll show you later in Premiere what I did to still kind of turn this into a looping effect, as you've seen in the video at the start. But this is pretty much all that I've done in Animate CC, just some very simple animation on the background of him, make him blink, move him to the left, and the background. What I did to it was I stretched it. So again, if we just click on the background, if you press Q, you can edit, and this was kind of the normal background, and I just stretched it out like this. And the effect still looks kind of simpler, and if we go back to what we had, you'll see that it's just moving down again. And this is kind of the effect I created. Something else I did was, when we go to our KSI layer again, what you can see is this cyan2 is on multiply, and I did that because a multiply layer shows the layers that are behind it as well. So when these darker spots or this light kind of reflects through, this is pretty much the basic. Now what I will do, or what I've done, is I save this. So what you want to do is export the film. This is the map that I have used, and then KSI the champ finished. For example, you can see I have a lot of different versions here. And within FL file, there's a program called Swivel, and you can export it into there. I can link a video if you guys want to, how easy it is to use Swivel to upload your animate.cc files. And yeah, that is pretty much everything in Animate. It's super simple. You just need to know how these kind of like keyframes work, how to do these frames. But like if you're a beginner in Animate, I would recommend you watch a couple of videos beforehand, and from there on you can move on to more complex things. But this is one, if you understand how it works, it's not too difficult. So now we can move on to our final product in Premiere Pro. So as you can see, this is the end result of the video, and now all we have to do is put it onto our timeline as we've done here, and you can see that it's playing. For the sake of the video, I've muted the timeline, but what happens here is instead of looping it twice next to each other, I chose to put the text or the song lyrics in here and then play it again, and this way you don't notice it going back, or at least the point is that you don't really notice it going back, and eventually both cross dissolve. And yeah, that's the end of the clip and the video. But Premiere is pretty much adding a bit of extra finishing touches, like the sound underneath. Yeah, that's all there is to it. I added these are pretty much images. I made these in Photoshop, so here you can see all the images that I made for every text, and that's pretty much the end result. Now I hope this video was useful, and if you did enjoy it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be posting more of these kind of videos in the near future, so stay tuned for that, and thank you for watching.